Hey there, it's Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. The Eye on College Basketball Podcast is presented by Jersey Mike's. Jersey Mike's, a sub above. Matt Norlander is here with me. He's at home in Connecticut. I'm in a hotel room in New York City. If you're watching on YouTube, smash the like button like you're Brandon Davies. You have consent. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel, please knock that out while you're here. Let's get into it. A busy weekend of college basketball is, for all intents and purposes, now in the books. Every ranked team, at least according to the Associated Press Top 25 poll, that was scheduled to play, they've played already. And for the most part, the weekend went as planned. There were 20 games featuring at least one team that's ranked in the AP poll. And the favorites won 19 of those 20 games. The only ranked favorite that didn't win was your Tennessee Volunteers. We'll get to the Vols a little later on, and rest assured, we will get to what happened inside Pinnacle Bank before we're done. But I wanted to start with a couple of other notable results from the weekend, specifically these two. Kansas 87, Baylor 71, and NC State 77, North Carolina 69, because those two results gave me a 4-1 week in the final 4-1. Deadleg, you went 2-3, which means I now have a massive 2-game lead in the final 4-1. Some are calling it insurmountable. How would you describe the uphill battle you're now facing?
Borderline unprecedented. I don't know. This might be a first. Final 4-1. You know what? You know how I know it's a first? Because you never talk about the Final 4-1 on a Sunday night. You bring it up when we have to every Friday. I can't ever recall you inducing Final 4-1 talk on a Sunday, so this really might be the first time ever. Congratulations, GP. We got plenty.
I almost did an emergency pod by myself this afternoon.
You should have. You should.
just popped on by myself and be like, hey, I just wanted to update you guys on the Final 4-1.
Just run through the scores, 2.5-minute pod uploaded to the feed.
I should have.
You should have done it, not told me about it. Would have been incredible. Keep that logged for future use, because that's not the worst idea in the world. Okay, too big. Yes, you're ahead in the final 4-1. We'll see how it goes moving forward. But yes, and you're having your best season ever. We are both well above 500. As a reminder, we do that as a vehicle and vessel to talk about games. We just so happen to be doing extremely well against the spread. Take those picks at your own risk moving forward. To you, what's the biggest result of the weekend? Your picks notwithstanding, GP.
We've talked about it so much because, listen, Kansas over Baylor was a wild game. But the result is not crazy damaging or helpful to anybody. Kansas already has more Quadrant 1 wins than anybody else. They just added another one. Kansas already projected as a number 1 seed. They just still projected as a number 1 seed.
Can I jump in real quick on that?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. Because I talked about this on HQ. So right now, let me bring up the team sheets here. I'm actually thinking, after the nature of that win, and it was outrageous, Kansas put on the best second half performance I think I've seen the entire season, taking into account the opponent. I know it was at home, but it was a 64-31 flip. Okay, that is unbelievable. Baylor's actually got some defensive issues to figure out there. For as great as the offense is, wow, Jekyll and Hyde, if I've ever seen it between two high-quality teams this season. Now, Kansas with the win, 13 quad 1 wins. Who's number 2 in that group? Purdue with 9. So I actually think Kansas is really putting itself in a spot here. Let me bring up the schedule real quick. All right. At TCU is another quad 1 on Monday night. A win at TCU, Parrish. It feels like they're a 1 seed no matter what. You could lose at home to West Virginia, lose at home to Texas Tech, lose at Texas, and lose your first Big 12 tournament game. It's going to be a lot of losses, but they're going to have so many more quad 1 wins than anyone else. So, KU fans, don't take it all the way to the bank, and they're going to get more than one more. But how about this? About a week ago, Kansas was flirting with that one line. They had been in the 1 seed conversation. But winning against Baylor, I think you have passed a threshold here where you have a lot more slack to lose games than you might even realize, because not everything is quad 1 wins, but they do carry quite clearly a tremendous amount of weight. And again, February 19th. They have a 4-game lead. I wish I had the data for you to say if that's unprecedented. To me, it feels like that. We've only done the net here for almost a half decade, but even if you transpose that to RPI, feels like this is super rare to have 4 more high-quality wins than anyone else in the field, and we're not even in March yet. So I actually think big picture, GP, the win is really a good signal for Kansas's future on the one line 3 weeks from tonight.
Okay, let's stay focused on this, and then we'll get to the result that I actually think is the most meaningful from the weekend. I agree with you. I think Kansas probably has more slack as it pertains to being a number 1 seed, maybe than anybody else in the country, and like you said, maybe more than KU fans even realize. I would stop short of saying they could lose out and still get a number 1 seed, but they're not going to lose out. It's Kansas. Yeah, it's Kansas. For Bill Self, they're not losing out. I don't think they could lose out and still get a number 1 seed, but I get your point. It's not unimaginable. Either way, they're not going to lose out. Right now, by the way, Kansas and Texas, both 10-4 in the league with 4 regular season games left, tied for first. But yeah, Kansas is in an obviously great spot. And the comeback, I mean, it's outrageous, and it's becoming a little bit of a, I don't want to say a trend or a pattern, but like they do it. They do this to people. They were down 40, as Cal Boone, Strongjaw, noted in his winners losers column. Kansas has now overcome a double-digit deficit to win a Big 12 game, a double-digit deficit at half to win a Big 12 game inside Allen Fieldhouse twice this season. They're down 45-30 to Oklahoma State, won the game 69-67, outscored the Cowboys 39-22 in the second half. This time down 45-32 to Baylor at the half, down 17 at one point. Win the game 87-71, down 17, win it by 16, outscored the Bears 55-26 in the second half. And then you want to go back to last season, down 40-25 at the half of the national title game against North Carolina, win the game 72-69, outscored the Tar Heels 47-29 in the second half of that game. About the worst thing you can do, seems to me, is lead Kansas by double digits at the half. Like if I were playing Kansas, and we're up like 11 with 14 seconds left, and Kansas
start shaving points. Yeah.
I let them score. Cut it to 9. Now let's go to the half, and perhaps we can trick them into thinking they don't have to come out blazing at the start of the second half, because that's what they have done in really all of those games. Back to the league race. Kansas and Texas actually play in the regular season finale.
It's going to be good. Yeah.
Awesome. In Austin. I think I asked you this about Alabama A&M because it's interesting. Top 2 in the SEC, top 2 in the Big 12 close the regular season against each other. And I think I asked you, do you think Alabama, Texas A&M final game of the regular season for those two schools will be for the SEC title? And you said no. And I agree with you. I don't think so, except, oh, by the way, Texas A&M went into Missouri and won. That's the game we both missed in the Final Four and won. So I agree with you. I think Alabama will have that league won by the time we get there, but we'll see.
Yeah, Alabama just put Georgia on probation over the weekend, by the way. So
beat them by 49. What did I tell you after Alabama lost to Tennessee? I said Georgia will pay for this, yeah. and Georgia paid for it. Alabama's now got 2 SEC wins, like, by these types of margins. They beat Vandy by 50,000. And
I think it's 57, I think was the number, which again is unbelievable.
I always round up that to 50,000.
Right.
And then beat Georgia by 49, which of course rounds up to 50,000. So Alabama just smoking people. I think they'll have the SEC locked up by the final weekend of the regular season. Same question, different league. Is Kansas at Texas regular season finale going to be for the Big 12 title?
It is going to be for a share of the Big 12 title. Here is your schedule. Kansas at TCU. We will get to TCU in just a little bit here. They need to be noted with what they did over the weekend, and we will get to you, Horned Frog fans. Then Kansas is home against West Virginia, home against Texas Tech at Kansas. That's 2-1 at absolute worst. Texas, meantime, got into a real fight in the mud with Oklahoma and won 85-83. That was in Austin. And now Tuesday night, home against Iowa State, obviously winnable, but Iowa State can win that game. And then it's at Baylor, at TCU if Texas can go 2-1 in that spot, it needs to go 2-1, and then Kansas has to, lose at least one. I think it will be for a share. So Kansas can win win the standalone Big 12 regular season title. And I think when we get to Saturday, March 4th, Texas will be on its home floor playing. And I don't know how the tiebreaker would sort out that way, because Kansas already has a win over Texas, and then they'd split. I don't have the league tiebreaker scenarios in front of me right now. So that's my prediction, is they will be playing for the chance. I don't think they will have the same league record on March 4th.
I have it. I actually played it out and have it exactly like that. I think I think Kansas will go into that game with a 1-game lead in the standings, and it'll be Kansas wins outright Big 12 champs, Texas wins co-champs. And as it pertains, and I know you know this, but just for clarity's sake for people listening, as it pertains to tiebreakers in the league, that will just be to determine who's the 1 seed and the 2 seed in the Big 12 tournament. They will, no matter what the tiebreaker says, if they finish with the same league record, Kansas, Texas, or anybody else, there's other schools that aren't out of this yet. They will officially be listed as Big 12 champions. If you finish with the best record in the league, whether you lose a tiebreaker or not, you win at least a share of that Big 12 title. And it like Big Monday on Monday night is just massive. Get Kansas at TCU. Like, I think Kimpon projects Kansas like a 1-point favorite in that game. But I'll be interested to see what the books do with that, because obviously Mike Miles Jr. is back and he's a real difference maker for that team. We'll get to TCU later on. So that's the situation in the Big 12. Awesome win for Kansas. With Baylor, I think I flip-flopped Baylor and Texas in the top 25 and 1. Put Texas ahead of Baylor, drop Baylor 1. I'm never going to punish a team harshly for losing at Allen Fieldhouse, given that that's just about the only thing you can do at Allen Fieldhouse. Your question to me earlier, what was the biggest result of the weekend? Before we went down this path, I was going to say, I think it's NC State over North Carolina. And we've talked about it a lot, but it doesn't make it any less of a massive story. The final score was 77-69. First off, did you see these dudes try to kill Turquavion again?
I did. So I did. So I went.
Every time Turquavion plays North Carolina, they send him to the hardwood.
I saw there was something going on. I took in some action on Sunday. I brought my boys to nearby Fairfield University, checked a little Jasper Stags, and I might have a note in this week's court report. That is an unreal major facility. That is. I
saw your pictures. It looked great.
It is the real deal. Like. I will not be surprised if we look up in 8 years and Fairfield is like the power in that conference, because of how much they have invested in that university. Used to, complete side note, but they used to play in an arena in downtown Bridgeport, on the shore of Bridgeport, and it was just too big. Like it wasn't where they needed to be. And so, it was awesome. And my thanks to the folks at Fairfield for, being so accommodating with my young guys. Went with my sons. It was our first time I taken both of them to a game. I got a 4-year-old who just wasn't able to go the past couple of years. That was awesome. But as I was watching that game, which came down to literally a free throw to decide whether or not it went to overtime or not, Manhattan got the win over Fairfield. There's your Mac minute here on the pod on a Sunday night. I was streaming because I had genuine interest in the NC State UNC game. And I got to be honest, now I was following a little bit of Twitter as well. I thought maybe it was my stream, but I did see what apparently everyone else saw, and that was 1982 level grainy video when they were trying to determine how Turquavion Smith got taken out again in this game. Apparently it was okay in terms of not throwing out. I think it was Nance. You can speak to that more than I can. And I'm going to give you the floor here because Carolina's the bigger story, but I do just want to give State its flowers here off the top, because it's going to the tournament. No, it's not a lock yet, but a major win in avoiding the sweep to UNC, owning it here. I picked the Tar Heels. I was wrong. That one's on me. I was wrong. I'm going to own that entirely. But for NC State fans that have really been, looking for something to quench this thirst about making the tournament, they're here. Because in 2020, they were on the bubble. They might have been there. They might not. But you didn't have a sure thing. Last time they were in the field was Keats' first season. It was a one and done, but it was a good debut season. 21-12. They've hit 21 wins now. They're going to win more games probably than any other season since he's been there. They did win 24 the next year, but as you know, with scheduling, it can sometimes be a little bit uneven there. So when UNC still hasn't registered a quad 1 win and Ohio State has stolen the only one they had and just plummeted, Carolina is going to be the bigger deal. Preseason #1 team on the verge of history, but I at least wanted to give Keats and that program the rightful due because the ACC is down, but the Wolfpack are really, really getting it done. Next 2 games against Wake and a Clemson team that we have to get to before we get out of this episode, before wrapping up against Duke. You still have more work to do, but very impressive. I watched those, I think it was 3 consecutive possessions. It was either 3 or 4, where it was boom and boom and boom. The building's on fire, and they flipped it on Carolina, and it was done. I want to say there was like a minute and a half or 2 minutes to go when they took that 8-point lead and just totally changed the game around. Big time stuff. DJ Burns had an outrageous, I think, bank from the short wing there. So credit to him, credit to Joyner, credit to NC State. You're in position. 1 or 2 more wins should have you in no matter what. Maybe even 1 is your magic number here. I really feel like that's probably the reality. That's what I got. What do you have?
It was loud in Raleigh. Forgive me, I don't recall who was calling the game. Because I was watching it in a hotel room I had my little guys with me and they were bouncing around the walls and iPads blaring. But one of the announcers noted that he had been coming to that arena for 15 years or so and that he had never heard it this loud. And that I don't know if he was at this game, but when I started thinking about all-time great NC State moments, remember that time that dude stormed the court in a wheelchair?
Yes. It's one of the best. Yes. I actually, if we got a State fan in the chat here, remind us it probably was Duke. I'm going to guess that's Duke in 2012. And that was a Saturday afternoon game, but that is a classic moment. That's where I think it was something in that realm.
I started laughing so hard, just that memory popping back into my head. Dude stormed the court in a wheelchair and got dumped over.
But he was okay. They actually did like feature stuff on him after, and he's good. I want to emphasize our guy is good. Yes.
I hope he's good. I ain't heard from him in a while. Anyway, the final score was 77-69, and as you know, it means North Carolina is now still stuck with 0 quadrant 1 wins. It's actually 0-9 now. It's been fluctuating between 0-8 and 0-9. It appears that at some point over the past couple of days, it went back down to 0-8. And this takes it back to 0-9. Tar Heels are now 6-11 in the first 2 quadrants. Couldn't help but notice Caleb Love, RJ Davis combined 9 of 30 from the field. That's obviously not good enough. And when we talk about North Carolina, we've been talking about them all season. Among the reasons they were preseason #1 in the AP poll, it was bring back 4 starters from a national championship team and then add Pete Nance. And Pete Nance can be Brady Manick. And it's just, I'm not putting this on Pete Nance, all of it, but he's not Brady Manick. And that's been clear for a while. He was 1 of 2 from 3 in this game. And he's now shooting 28% from 3. Like that's not Brady Manick would never.
It's not a Brady Manick, but I saw this tweeted out and I wasn't able to watch every possession. NC State had 3 turnovers in this game? Like that's also on Carolina's defense for not inducing that. Like there was just real. I'm bringing up the box right here, GP. That's 3 turnovers. 3? So it's as much as that as it is anything with what you're getting to, and I know you know that, but that's rare stuff. 3 turnovers in a game also was a major factor.
Here's the thing, though, with North Carolina. Like, this is crazy to even be in this position. It's February 19th, and you're preseason #1, and you have 0 quadrant 1 wins. Like, that's insanity. As noted on one of the podcasts last week, there's only 8 teams because Wake Forest at some point gained a quadrant 1 win just because the numbers shifted. So heading into this weekend, there were 8 schools in a power conference without a quadrant 1 win. And it's North Carolina and 7 schools that clearly aren't going to the NCAA tournament. And North Carolina still has a chance. I know it seems wild, but they're not that far from the right side of the bubble. 6-11 in the first 2 quadrants with an 0-9 record in quadrant 1. So you got 2 losses in quadrant 2, nothing in quadrant 3, nothing in quadrant 4. And the rest of the schedule, like it's equal parts simple and filled with opportunity. What I mean by that is on Wednesday, they're at Notre Dame. I guess nothing on the road is simple, particularly for this team, but you should be able to handle Notre Dame. I mean, Mike Bray had announced he's not going to be the coach anymore in the middle of the season. If you can't beat that team, you don't deserve any of the stuff you're trying to get. After that, you get Virginia at home on Saturday. According to Ken Pom, be favored in that game, at least based on the numbers right now. Then it's at Florida State. Florida State's terrible, so you should be able to handle that. If you're a legitimate NCAA tournament team, you should be able to handle that. And then the regular season finale inside the Dean Smith Center against Duke. Ken Pom has the Tar Heels favored in each of the next 4 regular season games. And based on the current net numbers, and as we've illustrated, they can change, and with it, the circumstances change. But based on the current numbers, like right now, as of this minute, if North Carolina were to go 4-0 in these next 4, which again, according to Ken Pom, they'll be favored in all 4, they would enter the ACC tournament 8-11 in the first 2 quadrants with 2 quadrant 1 wins. They'd be heading into the ACC tournament. So they'd be 3 games below 500 in the first 2 quadrants with no additional losses. For some context, right now, and I think Jerry Palm has to update his bracket maybe Monday morning, but as of Sunday night, the last team in Jerry's bracket is Texas A&M, and they're 2 games above 500 in the first 2 quadrants, but they have 2 quadrant 4 losses, which are like not technically, but they're like double losses. If you have a quadrant 4 loss, it's like a double loss. So North Carolina still has a chance. As bad as they've been all season, and as hopeless as it must seem right now, if you're a Carolina fan, you just watched your team squander a lead and lose to an in-state rival to remain winless in quadrant 1, they can still get to the NCAA tournament fairly reasonably. Do you think they'll do it?
Well, do you? Because I think, did I ask you a week ago or 9 days ago? And you said Kentucky no, UNC yes. Wasn't that your verdict then?
Yeah, and now I would say Kentucky yes. Obviously, Kentucky's won 2 nice games since then. We'll get to that. And I think I would still ever so slightly.
You just can't quit this team.
I would still ever so slightly say North Carolina's going to get there. I think Kentucky, I feel better. This time last week, I felt better about North Carolina than Kentucky. Now I feel better about Kentucky than North Carolina. But I still, if I had to bet, I would bet on North Carolina still getting there somehow, some way.
UNC's last 6 games. Here we go. 1-point loss at home to Pitt. 6-point loss at Duke in an unappealing game for Carolina Duke. 7-point loss that felt like more at Wake. Completely handled Clemson, and that's now looking a lot more like Clemson than Carolina, but 20-point win. You got it. That was a week ago. Handled at Miami earlier in the week. It was an 8-point margin. Handled. And then couldn't keep up down the stretch on Sunday at NC State. 3 of the 5 losses have come on the road, but lost at home to Pitt, a team also fighting for its tournament life. Lost at home to Miami, a team that was just knocking on the door of being a 4 seed on Saturday in the bracket reveal. Carolina, you asked me, and I'm, oh, man. It's got to beat Virginia and Duke in the regular season. I think it's got to go 4-0. If it doesn't do that, if it has a loss anywhere, it doesn't matter where it comes from to me. 3-1, 2-2, and good night. Good night. Okay. 3-1. Work to do in the ACC tournament, and I have not gamed out this damn ACC bracket. Who the hell would want to do that right now? But UNC, is it 8th or 9th in the league? Here's the problem, man. Like, let's say UNC is 8. All right. Somehow it doesn't win. It doesn't go 4-0. It just lands on the 8 line, however it lands there. Like, it's got to play Virginia probably. Like, come on. Unlikely. So right now I am saying 57-43 UNC is not going. I think Carolina's magic number, even though you can't, there's no scientific method to this. I'm just GP's a baseball guy. I'm going to throw a little baseball terminology into him. I think Carolina's got to get minimum 4 wins to get into the tournament. And there are definitely people out there saying, ACC championship game regardless. Now, that's not necessarily true. If it won the Final Four, the regular season, and then won its first in the ACC tournament, I think objectively that's going to be enough at that point. I think so. But I think it is more likely than not that UNC will not get there. And that was not my stance 5 days ago. It wasn't my stance on the pod. We did a drill handoff. And you can just toss your hands up in the air and just be like, this is it. I actually blame the podcast. You know what? Camel fighting dodo birds and Leaky Black. This just runs with the theme all season long. It's our fault. This is on us. Leaky, apologies, Carolina. This is our doing from the start. We brought Leaky on in the preseason. #1 team. You see what's gone. Just absolute, you know what, since then. As much as UNC fans want to blame Hubert Davis, blame us.
It's our fault. I'm pretty much with you on this. North Carolina goes 4-0. It will enter the ACC tournament on the right side of the bubble. If it goes anything less than 4-0, it will enter the ACC tournament on the wrong side of the bubble. But 3-1 would still give them a chance to get there. 2-2. Yeah, you're gonna have to.
No. That's 2-2, and you got to win the auto bid. I'm almost convinced of it. Doesn't matter how the two come. If you get the 2 against Virginia and Duke, but you lose to Florida State and Notre Dame, what are we doing here? So 2-2 is not getting a cut. And I know Nada's completely out on UNC. I don't even blame him for that. But yeah, I don't know. Just
There's no way you saw what you saw over the last 6 games and think that this team has any shot. They're done. You guys don't feel like killing them? I will do it for you.
They're record done. This. Just make sure we have this for when we need it. Okay? Because there were moments last season when everybody said they were done too. And I know we're deeper into this. Than we were last season. But I don't know. I can understand why you might think they're done. And you might be right. But 68-team tournament, they ain't that far from it, even right now. They're just not.
People do not you got to put 68 teams in this.
You have to put 68 teams in this thing.
Talk about this.
This is something people don't talk about enough.
These other podcasts out there, they don't know. It just, you don't realize you got to put 68 teams into this thing.
I've got a question from Joel in the YouTube comment that I think is a totally reasonable question. He asked, how do you evaluate league races, how good teams are in leagues with such uneven schedules in these big leagues? And I guess to that, my answer would be, when it comes to league races, I just talk about them as they're presented. It's understood that in the ACC, the Big Ten, the SEC, everybody doesn't play the same schedule. And yeah, some schools are going to have easier schedules than others, and that might actually contribute to who wins a league title and who doesn't. But I don't care about it. If you finish with the best record in your league, you are the league champion, and I label you as such. If you're in first place in your league, I call you the first place team in your league. I don't spend a second trying to qualify it with, well, they've had an easier schedule than this other team. You are in your league what your record says you are as it pertains to where you stand within that league. Broadly speaking, when it comes to evaluating teams, like for the top 25-1 for the NCAA tournament selection process, I don't even look at league records. I mean, I don't look at them at all.
Doesn't matter. It's completely irrelevant.
Yeah, I like it's why Texas A&M still isn't even close to the top 25-1, even though Texas A&M is now 12-2 in the SEC. I saw a quote from Dennis Gates heading into the Missouri Texas A&M game, and he said, "I don't know how you can be second place in the SEC and not ranked." Well, I know how. You start the season 6-5. You lose to Murray State and you lose to Wofford. You take 2 Quadrant 4 losses. So from a league perspective, when it comes to a league race, I'm just looking at your league record. I'm just talking about your league record. That's what a league race is. But when it comes to evaluating teams for the NCAA tournament or for the top 25-1, or, I'll let Norlander speak for himself, but the Hey 19 power ranking that he does, I'm looking at your entire body of work. I genuinely, right now, in some of these leagues with some of these teams that I have, and I don't even know where they're at in their league. I mean, I mostly do. But I don't pay attention to it. I don't care about it. It has no factor. I'm looking at your total body of work, and that is what the selection committee does as well.
I'll just say this real quick, and then we can move on, talk about all these other teams and games. I don't know if there are many things that coaches and players should care about this. You want to win your league, but between like media and coaches that we just diverge so greatly on it. Winning a conference championship is a major thing. I'm not dismissing that entirely, but for the purposes of how we talk about teams and how they're playing, like, we can acknowledge that kind of stuff, but it just doesn't mean as much to us because we're not invested in that. And fans, I understand fans will care about a league race as well, but particularly if we're talking about a team that's between 3rd and 5th in a conference, it just doesn't matter to us.
Yeah, so that's the story with Kansas, Baylor, with NC State and North Carolina. Those were 2 big results from the weekend that provided me with an insurmountable lead in the final 4-1, but they weren't the only notable results from the weekend. Kentucky improved its NCAA tournament hopes with a victory over Tennessee. That's a regular season sweep of the Vols. We'll get into that next, but first a word from our partners.
We're really breaking through and we're opening doors for the next generation.
If you see someone who looks like you doing things out of the ordinary, it would encourage you that you can do the same thing or better.
Someone at some point might feel inspired just by the existence of these stories.
You can't always do what you're told.
Now we get to be in places of authority. Now I get to be a captain. Let's fly.
So Kentucky completed the regular season sweep of Tennessee inside Rupp Arena on Saturday. Is it a bigger deal? What's the bigger story coming out of that? Is it connected to Kentucky or connected to Tennessee?
Yeah, I'll run with the theme of the episode. And, I feel it is Kentucky because Kentucky has now removed drama from its circumstances for the time being. Go win at Florida on Wednesday night and even further put yourself in the field. And then this won't be an every game kind of, live or die situation there. To get the season sweep of Tennessee is significant, not just because Kentucky now, can be projected comfortably into the field and improve its situation. Wildcats feel like a strong 11 to me at the moment, I guess. But even more than that, if it gets back into the group of the 4 to 6 teams that feel like they've got the most viscosity to their at-large viability, then Tennessee's sweep will amount to, I'm thinking it's got to amount to something that no other team in that hypothetical would have, GP. 2 wins over a team that will be probably on the 3 line or the 4 line at that point. So I think it's a bigger deal for Kentucky. For Tennessee, it's coming off an interesting week. It wins at home clearly against Alabama, does so shorthanded, and then again goes to Kentucky shorthanded. No Josiah Jordan-James is available. Tennessee fans know, although he is not the outright stud that was at sometimes thought he could be, he's a very good role player. And then Julian Phillips, who's a starter, also not available. You trade it off. You didn't need him to beat Bama. You needed him to beat Kentucky, and you didn't get it done. Tennessee has now lost 3 of its past 4 of its past 6. If you enjoyed our Saturday quickie response pod to the bracket, we both thought that Tennessee was too high on the overall seed line. I think it's particularly too high now. I know Tennessee fans have a little bit of an issue with that. It's nothing against your team. I'm just looking at the overall resume here, and the fact that the offense simply, it's interesting what Baylor is seemingly showing us on the defensive end and its major holes. Tennessee is the opposite of that on offense, and it's shown itself plenty of times there. And now it's got to turn around and go play against the team that's looking right up at him and 1 game behind him in the SEC, or right below them. No, right up at him. Sorry. A&M is second in the SEC. Tennessee, because of the loss, is now 3 games behind. Like, it's almost unthinkable here that the Vols are in a spot where they would be 3 games behind the team in second place, but that's where we are. Good job by Kentucky to get itself just in a little bit better of a spot. But both of these teams are going to follow up that game with roadies in the next 2 to 3 days.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I'm not speaking for all Tennessee fans, but some Tennessee fans with Twitter accounts, what they point to their big wins, because they have big wins. I mean, they got a win over Alabama, win over Kansas, and a win over Texas. They've got 3 wins over projected top 2 seeds, according to the selection committee, as of yesterday. And then they look at, 3rd in the net and 5th at KenPom. So they say we're 5th at KenPom, 3rd in the net, and we've got 3 massive wins. Like, maybe nobody's got 3 wins as good as those. So what are you telling us? We're not a top 10 team, or at least according to the top 25 and 1 as of right now, a top 15 team. The problem is the other stuff. Like your KenPom number and net number, that's part of the evaluation process, I guess. Your big wins, definitely part of the evaluation process, but just part. There are other parts, and the loss column is a big part. How about this? Tennessee is now 3-4 in Quadrant 2 games, under 500 in Quadrant 2. Just scrolling through it, they are the only top 40 net team in the country below 500 in Quadrant 2. And if you just look at some of the other teams that Tennessee fans have been comparing themselves to, like the best teams in the country, let's just go through the bracket reveal seeding. Alabama, 0 Quadrant 2 wins. I'm sorry, 0 Quadrant 2 losses. Houston, 0 Quadrant 2 losses, although Houston does have a Quadrant 3. Kansas, 0 Quadrant 2 losses. Purdue, 0 Quadrant 2 losses. Baylor, 0 Quadrant 2 losses. Texas, 0 Quadrant 2 losses. Virginia, 0 Quadrant 2 losses. Arizona, 1 Quadrant 2. You get the point. All these other teams have 0 or 1. Tennessee has 4 Quadrant 2 losses. This changed overnight when the net rankings updated, but at the time the Tennessee-Kentucky game went final, Tennessee had 6 losses to sub-35 net teams, and that's at least 2 more than literally everybody else in the AP poll. Now, because Kentucky moved into the top 35, it's now 4, but that's still just as many as anybody else in the AP poll and more than almost everybody in the AP poll. So that loss column is becoming problematic. And like I wrote in the top 25 and 1 on Sunday morning, if you're trying to figure out, because Tennessee probably has the most all over the place resume in the country right now in terms of great wins, but head scratching losses. What it tells me, and a lot of this stuff is they're great defensively and not so great offensively. And do you see they were like 4 of 14 from the free throw line? Like
yeah.
Shot it terribly from the field, terribly from 3, and
it was
unimaginably bad
performance.
Really bad. Yes. But they do this all the time. And what it tells me is that Tennessee is good enough when it plays well to beat anybody. It's not hard to imagine Tennessee being in the Final Four. I can see that. I cannot. Honestly, I can't. I don't count on the offense to win 4 in a row. I would differ from you on that. Well, let me be clear. I'm not predicting it. I'm just saying I can see it. I can imagine it. What I can also imagine is them getting a 4 seed, 3 seed, and then losing a first-round game in the NCAA tournament. It's not hard to imagine that either. Yeah, everything's on the table for Tennessee based on that defense is so great they can beat anybody, and that offense is so shaky. I don't want to say they can lose to anybody, but they can definitely lose to the type of team they will be playing in the first round of the NCAA tournament. They already this season have lost to worse teams than that.
Man. Yeah, just now they got A&M next, and
on
Buzz
the road.
Williams got him on the road. Buzz Williams' team, somewhat oddly, the only loss at home to Wofford. Wofford does not have it has an interim head coach right now. The coach that was coaching Wofford in that game isn't there anymore. Jay McCauley, he stepped away, or basically got pushed out. Wofford's 15-14, and a middle of the pack SoCon team, but it hasn't lost in league play yet. Credit to A&M for getting a win. I would think that A&M will be ranked on Monday. Paris doesn't have him in his rankings, but
I don't think that. Like Jerry Paul literally.
I'll just wonder, GP. They've lost twice since Christmas at Kentucky, at Arkansas, and sometime like the voting collective,
right?
They might reward them, and a decent amount of noise around again that conference placement overall. And Buzz has done a good job. Now, it has been with a little bit of anonymity to this point, but it was a clear-cut win on the road against Missouri. That is impressively done, and was A&M's best road win since they, almost a month ago, they went in and did something similar against Auburn. So we've seen enough there. I think A&M will crack the poll. I could be wrong, but I think they will. And now we will see how A&M which it was under, like, it's been under pressure to do well. I mean, it's been able to beat Arkansas and win at Missouri when quite clearly that tournament resume was up for real debate, bubble team stuff, right? And now you're going to have a Tennessee team come into your building that has shown the best of it and really much of the worst of it over the past week. So that's a really intriguing game on Tuesday night. A&M would come extremely close to lock territory if it beat the Vols. I can't go all the way there because the losses on the schedule are pretty glaring, but in the non-conference wasn't great, but you've done so much winning here. I actually think that's a pretty big opportunity for A&M in less than 48 hours.
You might be right. A&M might crack the top 25. Earlier in this podcast, I said they're not even close to my top 25 and 1. And that's because I do mostly care about the entire body of work. I don't disregard what you did in November and December. But I guess you could, this stuff is all subjective. I guess you could reasonably argue that on February 19th, I'm not really concerned with what somebody looked like on November 19th. It's a long time ago. And a lot of teams are different basketball teams now. Ohio State is vastly different now than it looked in November. And Texas A&M, in opposite ways, obviously, is a vastly different team than it was in November. So if you wanted to rank A&M, put them on an AP balance, fine with me. The way you have to do it, though, is just say, I don't care about any of the stuff that happens before Christmas. And again, maybe that's reasonable. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that's stupid. I don't necessarily, it's not what I do, but I don't necessarily think it's dumb. If you just say, hey, yeah, they were horrendous before Christmas. They started the season 6-5, but God, Christmas was a long time ago. And, everybody's Christmas trees are down. Everybody's Christmas lights are down. It's a long time ago. And if you focus on who's the best basketball teams in the country right now, Texas A&M is one of them. And because going to Missouri and winning ain't easy. Like, some good teams have lost there this season, and Texas A&M went in there and won. So that's the argument for A&M. It's not one that I'm going to subscribe to. I'm not going to abandon the way I do things, but I don't have like if I look at your power rankings.
If they beat Tennessee, I think I'm going to put them in. It's going to be justifiable at that point. Yeah, they're going to be just they'll qualify as one of the hottest teams in the country if they can beat the Vols. Yeah,
and you know what? If they beat Tennessee, I'll probably end up putting them in as well.
I don't think you'll have a choice. I don't know if you'll have a choice at that point, to be honest. So no, that's fair. All right, you want to tour the rest of the weekend here?
I'll just bounce you through some other notable results, and we'll see where it takes us. Like we already mentioned, Alabama blasted Georgia by 49. Not to be too outdone, Purdue blasted Ohio State by 27. We mentioned Mike Miles Jr. came back. TCU beat Oklahoma State by 25. Put 100 on him. Mike Boynton, after the game, said, I don't know if you saw the quote. He said, I want to be clear about this. This is about TCU making us look bad. we weren't just bad. They did that to us. So I thought that I appreciated the quote. My friend and colleague John Rothstein has said earlier in the season that he thinks when Mike Miles is healthy, when TCU is healthy, he thinks that's the best team in the Big 12. And I think you can make an argument that maybe so. I mean, I'm still leaning toward Kansas, I think, but yeah. I get it. TCU with Mike Miles is really, really good. And because keep in mind that stupid quad 4 loss they took very early in the season, that was also without Mike Miles. Like with Mike Miles, this is a 1-seed candidate.
And now they're not going to get it. Just so TCU fans, it's not going to work that way. Will it come up? I guess so. I honestly don't think your seeding is going to be affected at all. Now, if you want to build the case, I'm certainly willing to be a sympathetic ear and listen to it. But I just don't see that. Like, you still got to win the games. Right. But that being said, TCU without him can't win. He comes back against a top 10 defense in the country, and they score 100. They set a program Big 12 record. It's unbelievable.
He's the most valuable player in the country.
It's unreal, man.
They can't beat anybody without him, and then he comes back and they score 100. I want to actually see what their record is with Mike Boynton. I mean, with
Mike Boynton, I don't think they've won a game.
They have not won a game with Mike Miles because it's obviously bad with them. So they got 1 loss, 2 loss, 3 losses. They got 3 losses, and he has played 19 games. They're 16-3 with Mike Miles. They are a 1-seed candidate with Mike Miles, which is going to be interesting because they're not going to get a 1 seed. Let's say they get a 4. Well, that's tough stuff. because now you're playing. Yeah. You're in the Sweet 16 as a 1 seed, and you're playing a team that has been awesome at full strength, and now suddenly they're at full strength. So that was the big story among the big stories in the Big 12 over the weekend. Mike Miles returns. TCU looks great. Providence dropped Villanova to 7-9 in the Big East. Mm-hmm. Like we've talked about before, North Carolina and Kentucky struggling has been the major great program struggling story of the season. But Villanova deserves to be a part of that. I think we were sort of, not just you and I, but we as people who follow the sport was they don't have Justin Moore. Well, they do have him now, and they're still not good. And so that's year one of the Cal Neptune era is not going too well. Clemson, oh boy, lost at Louisville, which ended its NCAA tournament hopes because I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you read about this. There's a rule that was implemented this season. You can't make the NCAA tournament if you lose to Louisville.
Oh, I missed that.
It's a new rule. It got passed.
Oh, okay. So hold on. Let me bring this up here. So that means Western Kentucky, you're done. Florida A&M, you're out of here.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech, let's be real. And then Clemson. Yeah, that's.
I told you.
By the way, did you saw they hung the banner? You saw that?
I love it.
I do too. So the quick backstory on this. So I understand. And I even I playfully, I didn't even poke fun at it. I pointed out because I don't think a lot of people realize this. But on Saturday, Louisville celebrated its 10-year anniversary of winning the 2013 national championship. We all saw it. It all happened. Louisville, viable national championship winner. But it obviously has been vacated. It's the only major champion in big time college sports that's ever happened to, at least in men's basketball, I should say. The NCAA changed the rule. What I was not aware of is that rule about you can't have anything acknowledged that went into effect in 1990. So there are schools around the country that have made the tournament or a Final Four, a championship. Those banners are hanging because they got grandfathered in. But if you have been vacated of a championship after 1990, you cannot do it. That's why Michigan doesn't have stuff hanging up that represents the Fab Five era. Now, I was told that Louisville actually went and tried to do this in 2017 in a variety of different ways. Let us hang this kind of banner. Let us hang that kind of banner. Let us hang a coach's #1 banner. And the NCAA told Louisville, take a hike. It's not going to happen. And only because, or maybe not only, but a primary reason why this happened was that the people in charge of allowing or not allowing this thing, most if not all of them, are not who were there in 2017. So Louisville deserves to have something in the rafters. This is not Florida State with its 2020 canceled banner. I like that is an all-timer. It's not that. They finished the season as national champions. The AP poll did not have them #1 because, as we remind you pretty much annually, for whatever reason, the AP poll, the final one of the year, is the one that comes out the Monday after Selection Sunday. There is not an AP poll that is released after the NCAA tournament. There is a coaches poll. So the only poll that Louisville finished #1 in was the coaches poll. This was the workaround. They celebrated the team. They're undefeated with that banner in the rafters.
First off, I think it's wild that the NCAA can tell you what you can hang in your building or not. I mean, and by wild, I mean ridiculous. And if they want to draw the line at, you cannot say you are the NCAA tournament champion because that has been vacated. I don't understand how they could tell you can't hang a banner that says we won the 2013 NCAA tournament. Not we're the 2013 NCAA tournament champions because that was vacated, but we won it. We did win it. Okay.
So and if you want to a banner semantic situation.
Yes, right. Or you could say this, we, especially what they just did. I don't know why we did finish #1 in the coaches poll. We did do that. And the coaches poll did not vacate us.
And the coaches, but here's the only reason why they can do that, not the other stuff, from what I understand. And maybe this eventually changed. It should eventually change. Literally, the coaches poll is an independent body separate from what happened in the tournament, whereas it's the NCAA running the tournament, and the NCAA says, nah, man, we vacated that, and so you can't hang it up. You want to hang it up? Go ahead and try us and see how that works. And if you're Louisville, to be fair, I don't know if you really want to be fanning those flames. But your point is extremely well taken, and I agree with it.
Yeah, no, if I were running a university in these circuits, I would almost be willing to you know what, NCAA, since you lose in court every time you go, here's what we're going to do. We're going to hang whatever banner we want to because it's our building. Like, imagine, like, where do you draw the line on this? The NCAA, can they tell you whose number you can retire and not? Hey, you can't retire Chris Webber's number because he was
part of it. Yeah.
Like, can they tell you that? Like, that seems crazy.
Because his records got vacated. Yes.
No, they can't tell you who you can honor.
I think so.
They can't.
I think
How can they tell you?
Okay.
Because honoring somebody that is up to you. Like at Memphis, they just decided to hang Lorenzen Wright's jersey. The NCAA couldn't step in and say, "Don't do that" for any reason. It's like,
I guess. I mean,
we acknowledge they can't tell you what the hang. It's your arena. What are we talking about? So here's what I would do. Like, if I were the president of Louisville, or circle back, Memphis does not have a 2008 Final Four banner for the exact reasons that Louisville didn't have a 2013 national championship. I would hang the banner, and you know what I would do? I would say, since you lose in court all the time, tell us we have to take it down, and then we'll take you to court, and we'll let a judge decide.
Now, on that question, you know FedEx Forum as well as anyone. Is the 84 or what, 85? 85. Is that because they can technically do it, because I was told it was since 90.
I don't know. I don't. Memphis has been to 3 Final Fours. 2 of them have been vacated. The only one that's not vacated is 73. 85 vacated, 2008 vacated. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know, because I'm just going off of what I was told, and this person definitely knows what they're talking about with the NCAA stuff. And it was the rule got enacted in 1990. How about giving Louisville 5 minutes on a Sunday pod at the end of February? But a good win. Clemson, boy. That is extremely detrimental, and your situation is arguably even more urgent than Carolina right now. If you can win a couple of games, we'll get you back in the mix here. But Syracuse at home next, win that, then at NC State next Saturday. I have to ask you what you have in this document, because I missed this, whatever it was. And there's a few more games I'll bring up for you, but your last one you brought up here is Mick Cronin turning into a conspiracy theorist. I don't know what this is. He must have said something. I just didn't catch the quote.
So he was asked about UCLA being, I guess, what amounts to 8th.
Yes, they were 8th. Arizona was 6th. We also talked
in
that
the bracket reveal. Yes. And he went into a little thing about, well, you have, and I'm not quoting him here, I'm paraphrasing, but he went into a little thing like, we have to understand, when we left the Pac-12, we knew there would be repercussions.
They haven't left the Pac-12 yet, but okay.
And because that decision has cost a lot of people a lot of money. You're talking about tens of millions of dollars a year for some of these universities. The implication was somebody on that committee is holding it against us that we're which, like,
are we sure this was not tongue in cheek? My only question is, do we have?
No. Oh, I watched the video. He was
okay. So
dead.
you've seen it. Oh my! Come on, Mick.
He's dead serious.
Come on, Mick.
He could not.
We're doing this after. We're not even doing this after the real thing. We're doing this in February after the top 16.
Oh, he could not have been more serious. And like, we both love Mick Cronin.
We do not have Kyrie Cronin going on right now, do we?
Kyrie Cronin.
Come on.
Kyrie Cronin. I think the more likely explanation for why the selection committee, because I do think they underseeded UCLA. We both agreed on that.
We do agree on that. Yes.
I think the more likely scenario is that they're just wrong. They just messed up. I don't think there's some conspiracy against UCLA. Kyrie Cronin is hilarious, though.
Come on. I got to find this. I got to seek this out. Just the fact that he's willing to go in, and it's not even like he was like on the 3 line, then even more, I hear you. But they did technically land on the 2. That's just too good. And listen, Cronin, greatest coach in UCLA history. # Nell can stay. We're here for it. And I'm still in on UCLA being viable national title contender. I'm still heavily considering them among my 3 or 4 most likely candidates there, but you can't be going in on that. UCLA did sweep the NorCal schools over the weekend down there in LA. All right, a few other results I just want to toss on you then, because I know you tossed a few at me. I will just simply mention New Mexico winning at San Jose State. New Mexico was really flirting with disaster, and it needed to win that game on the road just to stay in the conversation there. It got it done. And then Utah State as well. Utah State, I still don't think it has a quad 1 win, but it beat Nevada. So some Mountain West love. The conference helped itself, broadly speaking, but there's still more work to be done. On Saturday, what else? Indiana beating Illinois. I gave you 37.5. Trace Jackson Davis, points, rebounds, and he hit 38.
I noticed that.
38 and a really good win. If you listen to the Saturday pod, obviously we're talking in real time. Good job on Indiana to come back and get that win. Another impressive win. And I know IU fans are familiar with this, Big Ten fans familiar with this, but if you're not checking in every single day, just a reminder, Xavier Johnson is the team's third best player and their lead guard. He is still out. And in theory, if he can come back and be effective, you are looking at a very, very viable second weekend team. So continued good signs for IU there. Anything else from Saturday that I think is worth pointing out here? I'm scrolling through it because you know what? You mentioned off the top, there wasn't a ton of upsets. There wasn't a ton of off-script stuff. I do want to note the powerful scene, as expected, at Chrysler. Michigan got the win, 84-72. I'm going to paraphrase Izzo here as well. I think he said something to the effect of like, if ever I wish I had the power to win one game ever, it was this one for our community and for those people. Hear his loud and clear, but he's done way above and beyond. And it was really, as expected, emotional scene. But something I did appreciate was how all of that was the continual backdrop throughout the game. But geez, the game had a lot of urgency to it. And Michigan really composed itself, and it's got so much work to do from an at-large resume perspective, GP, but it did win by 12. It got a very, very important win, and in doing so, it split the season series with Sparty.
Yeah, that was really sweet. I've seen the video and the pictures. They turned it green, and it was just a really sweet moment. And I don't know if you saw the tweet from the Michigan State athletic director earlier, but he was like, "I just want to thank Michigan for doing." Again, I'm paraphrasing, but for doing what you did this weekend. Like, we are rivals, in sports, but our humanity overruns any of the places where our colors separate us. And it was just like, those are two big time. And we've seen this in college sports now multiple times under awful circumstances over the past few months. After Mike Leach died, the Mississippi State football coach, Ole Miss literally put Mississippi State stuff on its uniform, on its helmet, when it played its bowl game. And those two very bitter rivals really came together. Like, obviously, based on where I live, my wife's an Ole Miss grad. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law are Mississippi State grads. Like, we're surrounded by this stuff, and those two schools don't like each other. And Ole Miss fans, I think, were genuinely rooting for Mississippi State in their bowl game. And Lane Kiffin went to Mike Leach's funeral, and they really showed, hey, we can come together in this moment. We don't like your football team, and you don't like our football team, but this is bigger than that. And same thing for Michigan and Michigan State this weekend. I thought it was terrific. Like, it really, I don't know. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was an awesome scene.
I agree. A couple more leftovers from Saturday. I will note, like, we have I don't know if we poke fun at Vandy, but whatever. Vandy's won 5 in a row, and it beat Auburn. I think Auburn fans were filling up more than half of that joint, and they really made the trip up to Nashville. You don't really need many excuses to make that trip. But the point is, the jungle traveled, and I don't want to say it didn't matter. It was a close game, but Vanderbilt has quietly won 5 in a row. And, a month ago, I think there was just curiosity, like, not that Stackhouse was like in grave jeopardy, but I was like, will this continue to a 5th season or not? Well, you look up and they've turned into a factor there. Auburn remains a roving target in the dark and has won 2 games since January 25th. Those games at home against Georgia, at home against Missouri. Now, they destroyed Missouri less than a week ago, but just don't really know much. Rutgers did get a good win by 1
on the
road against Wisconsin.
Real quick on that.
Yep.
Auburn has 1 win over a top 40 KenPom team all season, and it was shorthanded Arkansas. They really haven't done much.
I haven't even looked. I'll look at this real quick. I feel like
they beat Northwestern.
Where does Palm have them? Hold on. I feel like Palm's got them like on the
21. I mean, like, I don't know where Palm. I'm not looking at that.
Right now.
The point I was saying, they're 21st at KenPom. They have strong computer numbers, but not a very strong resume. Again, one win over a top 40 KenPom team all season, and that win was over a shorthanded Arkansas team. And on Vanderbilt, while you're looking that up, like Jerry Stackhouse coached in the G League before he coached at Vandy and had a great reputation. Like, he worked in the Grizzlies organization, and had a great reputation. And it obviously has not gone well at Vanderbilt. But I don't know if you've heard the same stuff, but like when I talk to coaches about Jerry Stackhouse, they do not goof on him the way they goof on some other coaches who aren't having success. All I've ever heard from other coaches is that Jerry Stackhouse is really good. It just hasn't. He did the win-loss stuff hasn't been right, but he is respected in the coaching community. Like I hear good stuff about Jerry Stackhouse, and it now looks like some of that is starting to show itself. Like Vanderbilt's still not going to make the NCAA tournament. I mean, they're still just 15-12. Let's calm down a little bit, but they are playing well lately. Like you said, 5-game winning streak, victories over Ole Miss, Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina, Auburn. He seems to have this team headed in the right direction, and now we'll see. Assuming he's back next season, I think that's a reasonable assumption. We'll see if he can get the program headed in the right direction, that direction being toward the NCAA tournament.
All right. I'm not going to let myself get out of here without being rightfully ribbed over Nebraska. But before we get to that, I did bring up Palm's bracket, and this is going into the weekend. So he did have Auburn on the 9 line. That'll drop. But how about this? Nevada was on the 8 line, lost. Oklahoma State on the 9 line, lost. Iowa got drubbed by Northwestern, which can Northwestern, again, love to just barrel into this thing. Break down the double doors. Extremely impressive to continue this kind of momentum. Iowa, though, lost. NC State gets the dub. Pitt, 8 line, lost. Memphis, 9 line, lost. Auburn, 9 line, lost. Michigan State, 8 line, lost. So all teams except for NC State that were either 8 or 9s in Palm's bracket going into the weekend took an L.
Which, by the way, is why North Carolina, just to circle back, ain't that far away from this thing. All these teams lose.
That's practically it's a feature, not a bug. Yes, without a doubt. And
bubble teams, breaking news: bubble teams lose a lot.
It does happen. 80-60 Northwestern over Iowa on Sunday, and then I'm here for it.
Woo, boy,
so I'm getting ready to come on the pod, but I had to help put my kiddos down, so I step away and then I boot up the laptop. I was watching Maryland, Nebraska. I was watching all of it. And so, but then I dip away for 10, 15 minutes, whatever, open up the laptop. And what do I see? I see this. If you're watching on YouTube, that's Sam Hoiberg. That's Nebraska's SID, Seamus McKnight, pod listener. This pod is huge in the SID community, by the way. I didn't
know that.
Yeah, I had a couple actually reach out to me that said, appreciate you guys doing the Saturday one. They listened like shortly after it went into the feed. So I appreciate that. I'm going to own it. I said Maryland would win by, I think, 14. Okay. Yeah. That one's on me. I was wrong.
I'm going to own it. I told you. I said, listen, got good news, bad news for Maryland. The good news is that you just beat Purdue. Biggest win of the season. One of the biggest wins in recent years. Great moment for Kevin Willard. Bad news is, next up, you got to turn right around and go to Pinnacle Bank. And you mocked me. Mocked me.
I didn't mock you so much as I mocked that building, as I often do, because I still think Hoiberg's only won like 7 home games there.
That place is special. There's some magic in that place.
Again, that's eye of the beholder stuff, I suppose.
Now, think about it. Sam Hoiberg, he grew up. Okay. Well, he didn't blow up, but grew up inside Hilton. He was crawling around Hilton.
Must have been. I mean, he also might have been like 9. So let's have him ambulatory, please.
I know people don't. This is another thing people don't know. Sam Hoiberg crawled till he was 11 years old.
Okay. Now, come get him, Seamus. Come get your guy. I'm off the hook.
No, I apologize to Carol. I'm just goofing around. I'm sure Sam was walking before his first birthday. I'm sure he was.
All right, now you got him some world records. All right, that's drastic.
No, I think about one. That my kids were all walking by one. They were walking at 0. I think all my kids walked before their first birthday.
All right. Hoiberg had the steal and the layup to clinch it. So that's also a really cool thing. And yes, a nice win for Nebraska. We talked about curiosity over Stackhouse. I'd say there was some of that. I never actually bought that this was going to be a really make or break year for Hoiberg personally, but that's all that talks like all out the window, and that's a really good win. Maryland just takes a ding to his tournament resume. It's still fine, and it has nothing to be concerned about at the moment. I'm not going to say it's as good as a lock because don't go lose at home to Minnesota and don't go lose at Ohio State, but it's in fine position. It couldn't get it done in regulation, and then Nebraska closed the door in OT and won by 4.
Pinnacle Bank's a special place.
That's what they say. Never been
either. I gotta go.
Yeah,
sometime.
Look at that. Yeah, that's no coincidence.
I've been in Nebraska. You ever been in Nebraska?
Have not been
to Lincoln.
It's not my choice. I would love to get out there. Big fan of the band Mo. Nebraska's easily in my top 5 Mo songs. So I'm all about Nebraska. Who gets to Pinnacle Bank first? You or me?
Probably you. I don't go anywhere anymore. I only go back and forth to New York now. The only places I'm either in my house, at my golf course, at FedEx Forum, or in New York City. Those are the only 4 places I go.
That's tough.
It's tough. It's a tough life I'm living.
Tough deal.
Look ahead to the next 2 nights.
Yeah, let's go. What do we got?
All right. Like we mentioned on Monday night, massive game. Kansas at TCU. Can't wait for that one.
Big time game. Oklahoma
State at West Virginia.
Enough intrigue there. 7 Eastern, ESPN 2. Oklahoma State's still got room in the field, clearly. West Virginia, super weird resume, super weird team. They've lost 3 in a row. You need to get this one, West Virginia.
Kenny Payne taking a 1-game winning streak to Duke.
I did not have that one on my radar, but okay.
Kenny Payne's on a 1-game winning streak.
Headed to be on a one. Does it? I personally, it's got to be 3 to be qualified as a streak. I don't even give you 2. 3 is a streak. You have
to grade on a curve with Louisville. Okay. It's Louisville's on a 1-game winning streak. It's like dog years a little bit,
Did you see the video I tweeted when Louisville won? Because Louisville Athletics tweeted it over the weekend.
I don't think
we are at 10 years. We are at 10 years. I would play it, but you got to watch it to have it hit and whatever. We have been 10 years since the Harlem Shake was a thing. Gosh, that went by in a flash. It's been 10 years. So 10 years ago, Louisville wins some sort of game and they're in the locker room and Pitino's like starting to talk like normal. Just, we played great defense. We did what we needed to do. I'm so proud of you guys. And then Russ Smith stands up on a chair and the Harlem Shake music starts talking and you hear Pitino going, "What the hell are you doing?" And it's just Russ Smith dancing. And then the flash cut, and then all the Louisville players are just going nuts in the locker room. Harlem Shake. That was a real thing for about 6 months back in 2013. I can't believe it's been a decade.
I enjoyed the Harlem Shake.
You should bring it back.
I might bring it back.
I think you and Rothstein in the studio Tuesday night bring it back.
Oh, dude, you don't even know what's going on tomorrow.
I don't.
A special time to shine.
You and John?
Me and Rothstein are doing time to shine together.
I got bad news for you, man. I got real bad news. I'm bringing up the schedule, and you're going to lead with UC Irvine at Cal Poly, followed in the B block by Arkansas Plum Buff against Texas Southern, followed soon thereafter by Howard at Morgan State, and a little Coppin State, Norfolk State before you get out of there.
We were joking because it is going to be a special college basketball edition of Time to Shine because I say this like John doesn't care about anything other than college basketball. So it's not like I can bring him on and talk about NFL offseason stuff. He doesn't care. And so
I saw John Friday night. I went to Iona. I'll have something on Rick Pitino later this week. So I saw John. He was there. And I mentioned somehow came up in conversation about it being All-Star weekend. And he was like, "Oh, the All-Star game's this weekend?"
Yeah, no, that's what
yes, John. Yes, the All-Star game's happening.
So we're doing nothing but college basketball. So we were joking in studio like earlier in the week. It was like, welcome to Time to Shine. Aaron Rodgers has been traded to the Jets. LeBron James tore his ACL in Sunday night's All-Star game. But we start at Providence. That's what we're doing. So
start with Ed Cooley's rotation off the bench. Why wouldn't we?
Tom Brady has unretired once again. Giannis Antetokounmpo died in the All-Star game, but we start with an incredible season at Fordham. I mean, that's where we're headed. That's where.
Oh man, Fordham did come up between me and Rothstein on Friday as well. So
no,
he's like, they got it done in league play. I was like, I know, because if you look at Ken Palm, their schedule is ranked 363 out of 363.
Yeah, we don't have to get into this. The details don't matter.
I know. All right, so there's you go. Special.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting. We're gonna have a good time with it. Can't wait. So that's on Monday. On Tuesday night, Villanova at Xavier. Baylor at Kansas State. Big one.
Yes.
Can't believe Brent Stover is going to be in Asia calling MMA instead of in studio watching Kansas State with me. Tennessee at Texas A&M. We mentioned massive game. Miami at Virginia Tech. Mississippi State at Missouri. Marquette at Creighton.
Yeah.
Big one.
Huge night.
Iowa State at Texas. Indiana at Michigan State. Tuesday night is loaded.
That is a loaded schedule. Man, oh man. Best game on that slate for me is probably Marquette Creighton. John Fanta hit me up with an absurd tiebreaker situation in the Big East. If Creighton wins that game, I'll bring it to you Wednesday if Creighton wins. And yes, literally Fanta was like, you got to know this, Norland. I'm like, do I? And then I was like, hell yeah, I needed to know that. But Creighton's got to win the game. Baylor, Kansas State's really good. We talked about Tennessee A&M. Man, oh man. Tuesday is that is a stacked schedule there. I don't even know if you mentioned Miami at Virginia Tech, which isn't like top 6 or top 7, but Miami's on the road trying to play for, top 4 seeding. It just was on the outside looking in there. So that is
Virginia Tech got a win this weekend.
It did over the Pitt Panthers there. So,
interesting.
And
interesting.
Texas Tech can't seem to lose anymore. It plays at Oklahoma. So we'll see. That's a tasty and just jam slam Tuesday night.
All right, I think that's it.
I think we are. By the way, I'm not opposed to these. We try to get them in an hour, but this is like our 6th straight podcast. That's like 70+ minutes. But
maybe we need to tighten it up a little bit.
I don't know if we do. By the way, I saw the comment near the top of the show. Just remind us next year, because we did it last year. We're not doing it now. We did last year for whatever reason. However, the calendar broke. We actually did a fun little exercise where we each drafted our college basketball all-star teams, but we had to include a mid-major guy. It was a really fun thing, and I forgot we did it until someone literally at the top of the show was like, who would you take for your college hoops all-star teams? Forgot about it. Someone find us 2 weeks before the all-star game next season, and we'll be sure to do it.
Oh, by the way,
yes,
that's the B block in time to shine on Monday.
Oh, is it real? Oh, look at this.
Playing off of the, because it's like, how do we play off of the all-star game without talking about the NBA? It's like,
you better mandate some mid-major players, because that's where the magic's really going to happen. That's what's going to happen, man.
I got to figure. We have a draft first thing Monday morning.
You just take Antoine Davis and get it done with. You get Antoine Davis, and then you get Antoine Davis, Max A. Smith. Let Rothstein take care of the rest of the small guys.
I'm taking Leaky Black, number 1 overall.
That's what I want to hear.
I'm going to show loyalty. Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Huck Larnell. Thank you guys once again for listen to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed, go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. 5 stars, nice review. There's more of us than there are of them. It needs to be reflected in the comments. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel yet, do that, please. We thank you in advance, and we'll talk to you again on Wednesday. Till then,